Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. I am your host, John Garcia. We've got, some kind of weird adult animated quagmire of concepts and philosophy for you tonight in the form of the movie that I picked. But before we get into that movie, let's share, who's here. Of course, the usual suspects. We've got Ryan King.
Hey, my mind is like completely on another plane of existence. I don't know what you've exposed us to.
Did we do drugs?
Dixon goes away for like a few weeks and we're fucking watching Shrek shit and going off the rails, and now this.
Yeah. This is the come down. this.
Yeah, this was the easing back into it.
Yeah. Well, Dixon, welcome back stateside. Also, Michael Dixon joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to whatever this was.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back, guys. I thought you were going to kick me off the podcast here, but glad to be back. I'm not sure exactly what we just watched, aside from some Bible stuff and some history and a hell of a lot of subtitles.
There's so many.
I feel
subtitles.
like I'm still reading subtitles. I watch a lot of foreign films, and I was not prepared for the density of the dialogue and the amount of reading involved.
Yeah. This was definitely a book level of subtitles, not just like dialogue.
This was like the movie version of House of Leaves, but
why are there subtitles on the side of the screen going upward?
It helps if you have a screen that rotates as you go. So the movie that I picked for this episode is 2011's The Tragedy of Man.
Ó, Lucifer, nézd csak földünkre vissza. A jól ismert táj 100 kedves helyével jellem nélküli síksággá lapult. Mi érdekes volt, minden elmosódott. Hová lett? Hideg borzongat, Lucifer!
Which is a Hungarian animated film by Marcell Jankovics. He's the same person responsible for The Son of the White Mare, which is a fantastic 80s trippy
Fucking love that movie.
Hungarian movie. Yeah, it's so great. That one is way simpler in concept and execution than this is. Part of why I picked this is I talked about it for a while. I think that I had brought this on like a recommend or refute at some point, and I've always been like, hey, Dixon, we should watch this sometime. We should, this is going to be something good. And then after, in the past episode when we watched Shrek, I was like, what's another good animated feature that I could bring that would kind of counterbalance that. And how could I welcome Dixon back from Italy? What's the best way? And I thought this is a great movie to do both of those things. Because it's going to be in a foreign language. So even when you're back on American soil, you'll still have to, hear some different tongue besides English.
In Italy, I didn't really have to hear any foreign languages, which was kind of upsetting. Like everyone over there speaks English. And the most people there are American tourists. So
that is very upsetting.
Yeah.
I also know that you didn't get to go to any Italian cinema.
I did not.
Staples or history. Damn, that's for next time. But yeah, I picked this, and I had seen this once before. The Tragedy of Man tells the story of Adam and Eve and their fallout from the garden and their temptation by Lucifer. But it does it in this really wild fucking way in which Lucifer is just always present with them throughout time. And you just travel with, it's mostly Adam that you're with, but Eve does show up, like weaves in and out of the story at different points to be kind of a pure force that brings Adam toward wanting to do something better, and Lucifer is the other force there trying to always pull him away from whatever might be best for mankind. Along the way, there's kind of like this constant questioning that Adam has of like, what the fuck am I actually supposed to be doing? Like, what is humanity's purpose? After gaining, the wisdom and knowledge from the tree of knowledge, they become like listless and aimless and constantly pursuing goals that seem to undermine or marginalize or harm other human beings at the kind of as a sacrifice to whatever they think their glory and immortality should be. That's about the most that I can really make out from the movie when I see it. Like, my brain's just kind of melted afterwards because on top of being that kind of religious deliberation and philosophical, like metaphysical debate between these characters, there are like 15 style changes in the way that it's drawn and the way that it's done, coupled with the fact that this movie is like 23 years in the making. I believe it started in like 1988 and then it wrapped up in 2011 and released. So there's a lot of like stop start in the production where they lost funding, they regained funding. Marcell Jankovics actually consulted on The Emperor's New Groove to make money to fund this movie, which is kind of wild. But you can kind of feel that. I think at one point, Dixon, you were like, is this finished? Like, is this movie done? Just because sometimes the frames themselves would kind of stutter into being like storyboards almost, but they were just like still exquisitely drawn. And I think that just speaks to something that was like ebbing and flowing in its production up until it was released. Like they almost like, it seems like they never went back to like redo certain parts of it. And they were like, no, that's just like the best we were going to get at this point, and we'll move on. But I remember when I saw this the first time, I was so struck by it. I just wanted to share it with y'all. And I felt like this was kind of the right time. So I was like, let's just do that. That seems interesting. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what y'all thought of it. I guess, Ryan, you've seen some fucking weird animes and other animated features. What were your thoughts watching this?
Right off the bat, it gave me the like belladonna of sadness like feeling. Those like some of those like early more experimental anime that blend the line on animation. Like, this is animated technically, but it's so fluid in what it's doing and like what's going on, what the styles are, the color palette, like everything. And I think it's used well for differentiating each of the different eras that gets visited. But even within like one sequence, this is definitely like if this is your first time on drugs, don't watch this movie, because it just constantly, like, even one person talking will just mutate into different people, kind of, or whatever.
It's like a man that turns into a lion at one point, and
especially Lucifer. Lucifer is just like constantly like extra heads and coming and going, and it definitely gave me the vibes of like every like YouTube video that's like, this movie is more fucked up than you remember from your childhood, 80s animated movie, and the fucking weird shit in it. Like, this is that for more than 2 hours. Like, that's what it felt like the whole time. And yeah, it's kind of hard to like pin down. I agree. It ends up, I guess it's based on a book, a Hungarian play, or
it's sort of. It's like a poem.
Yeah, book, a play, that gets staged as a play quite a lot. It's very Dante, in all of it, probably the whole Dante epic, not just like Inferno, with like long conversations and back and forth of things that are going on, and then just like so much shit happening, naked people, death, fucking whatever, all kinds of crazy stuff, and the visuals of it all just completely weird. So yeah, it's something, it's an experience. It's really hard to like quantify it, I guess, other than just like, I can see where it was worked on for forever. It's not clear that it's done. It's not clear that there was like full understanding of any given thing that they were doing. They kind of just kept going.
Yeah. Oh no, Ryan, you froze.
So I'm like, I don't know what to say about it. I think Dixon is the one that's frozen.
I love it. Ryan like froze for a second, and then he came back and was like, "Yeah, so I don't know what to say about it."
Yeah, I don't know. That's all I gotta say about that.
Beautiful. Dixon, what did you think about this?
Yeah, this movie was a trip. There's a lot going on, but there's also not a lot going on. It's kind of a weird contrast there where there's all these different animation styles and there's a lot of high concepts, but you get kind of the same story repeated over and over throughout the movie. You know, you have it at the beginning where you have the fall of Adam and Eve, and then from there you have just, you know, different stories of human history playing out where, you know, Adam is playing the role of some human in some era of history, you know, say the Egyptians, and the animation is matched to the Egyptians, and they jump to the Romans, and the animation is changed to suit that period of history a little bit more. And you have Adam being tempted by Lucifer to do dumb shit, and it's basically, you know, kind of the repeated story of, you know, human violence against other humans, and the you know, drive to be better than and to subjugate other human beings, and how that has played out repeatedly over the course of human history. And it's kind of depressing in that way, where you're like, you know, we never really learn anything as a species. We just keep going to war with each other. We keep enslaving each other. We keep doing this awful shit. And the movie does a good job of illustrating that point and kind of showing our arrested development as a species, that we're just kind of stuck on this hamster wheel that we are doomed to be in forever. You know, and I guess that's kind of like you compare this to Dante, Ryan, like that's kind of our circle of hell that humanity is in, kind of repeating this cycle over and over. I think my main takeaway, though, was that dogs are evil, which I have always thought and have been preaching for decades, and no one wants to listen to me. I get very offended when I say that. But no, I mean, I liked it, but I did think it was very dense, and I think it would really benefit from an English dub. Like, there's just so many subtitles to read that it was hard to, like, they moved across the screen really fast. It's hard to keep up with all the subtitles and to actually like appreciate the animation and to kind of sit in the themes a little bit more while you're just trying to hurry up and read before the next subtitle comes up. I know, John, you had mentioned that there was a more recent English language Blu-ray that had, or not maybe English language, but a US Blu-ray that had come out, that I wonder if there's a better, either better subtitle or a dub out there that I'd be really interested to see. We were watching John's like Hungarian Blu-ray or something, and you know, using the
import
English subtitles on it, which was cool. It was a great experience to watch, but I would be curious to watch it again under different circumstances with either an English dub or maybe an updated subtitle translation that's not quite so wordy, to kind of just sit with the movie and appreciate its themes a bit more. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I do think it's interesting, John, you say it's a lot more complicated than Son of the White Mare. Son of the White Mare is more complicated visually. Like, the animation is so impressive in that film, but the ideas are very straightforward. And in this, the animation is very simple. It does change a lot, but it's very straightforward. And I think that's probably by necessity, because it's 3 hours and it took him so long to make it and he had so little funding. He probably couldn't put quite as much effort into the animation. Not to say the animation isn't beautiful and very interesting to see how it changes, but it's not quite as complex as some of his previous work. But he's definitely trying to pack a lot in here and a lot of big ideas, and I think sometimes that works and sometimes it gets a little tedious, kind of telling the same story over and over, where I don't know that he needed to tell it quite that many times to make it land. But overall, I think it's a really interesting film.
Yeah, I think that if this had been like a frame by frame, or, you know, 24 frames are actually animated in the way that I'm thinking of, like right now, when you watch it, it feels like a motion comic or a motion graphic where certain parts are sliding or moving. If it had been like actually frame by frame, or 2s or 4s or something like that, this would feel much more like Across the Spider-Verse, I think, because it just has like a crazy shift of its own style every 10 minutes or something is what it seems like. Yeah, I can definitely see like the Son of the White Mare being it is complicated because they wanted to do much more kaleidoscopic animation. Here you have to, I think his art team had to master like the 15 different art styles they wanted to do for the entirety of the film. So that's where like a lot of the effort really shines.
Yeah.
And I feel like the content itself, like I'm gonna have to like read this book or this poem if I probably really want to grasp what's going on. Cause I know Marcell is on record as saying that he just doesn't like the stage productions of it. He feels like this is a story that's so fantastical it needs the medium of animation to actually tell it. Because he's like, yeah, if you just do it with regular people, then it's kind of underwhelming to see like Lucifer take Adam through all these different eras and these different roles and periods. And you're really focused much more on the dialogue than you are like feeling the actual era based on its period, art style, or its culture. And I can kind of see that argument being made. But yeah, I really don't know beyond this, like when it comes to the repetition of it, do y'all feel that the continued story, because it does feel like it tells this, it's a cyclical thing. Each segment is almost like a stanza in a poem, which, you know, it's based on one. So it's like, why not? But do y'all feel that each of these, like Adam is doing this, it sets up like a formula of Adam is doing X, Lucifer says Y, and then Adam is trying to do something great and usually ends up failing or fucking it up. Do you feel like that actually progresses through the story, or did you get much more of like it goes nowhere by the end of it? Like it is kind of futile and nihilistic. I guess it's like, does it feel like it has any optimism to it, or does it feel mostly like nihilistic in its execution?
My take was that humanity is not getting better. If anything, is just getting worse in each successive scene. And to me, it felt like just kind of calling out the futile nature of humanity trying to better itself and the impossibility of us learning anything as a species and moving forward and evolving. You know, if anything, devolving to the point of our eventual destruction. That was kind of my take on it, but I don't know that that's the takeaway necessarily.
Yeah, I think it tries to be not necessarily uplifting at the end, but yeah, I definitely get the feeling of like humanity and its institutions are flawed and inevitably fail. And I guess Adam eventually has this like, well, then what's the point? Kind of at the end, but then decides to move forward anyway in like a faith, or it's worth it. I don't know exactly, what the take is, but like,
was that before or after he became a robot?
After,
he goes, yeah, after he goes back to being a caveman, I guess, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That's. I think that one of the biggest gripes that I have is that there's so much like text and talking and something that is a visual medium. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I think Dixon, you put it well, like it's almost like a distraction because you're trying to like, and I think if I was listening to it too, it'd be a distraction. It's too much.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess if it's a play that's on a stage and it's just three people in the sets, like you don't really have anything else but the dialogue at that point. But I think if you were going to translate this to being animated, it would be better if it was in these clearer segments, and the more of the segment was the show don't tell of whatever the point you're trying to get across.
Yeah, agreed.
Because it almost always is just like, I betting if you look at the script, it's like Lucifer, Adam, Lucifer, Adam, Lucifer, Adam, like just back and forth, like saying something to each other. I think some of the better sequences are the ones where there's like kind of a little plot within what's going on, as they explore whatever it is. And inevitably, like Eve comes back in. Interestingly, I thought she was always going to like tempt him and be the downfall, but they actually give Eve more of like an uplifting, like beat, like in a way, like it's both. She does seduce him in a way and pull him to some vices and stuff at points, but also tends to be the one that like pulls him out of it. But yeah, it almost felt like there was supposed to be one big bullet point for each era but I got lost
Yeah,
at some point in it, right? Because I think it's like early on, he's talking about slavery.
Yep.
Great, like as they're building the pyramids, and then each person just becomes the stone of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the kind
Yeah.
of thing where I'm like, that's great visually. But then also Lucifer and Adam talk for another fucking 10 minutes about slavery and stuff, right? And I'm like, no, I got it. That was great. I got it. And then he walked up it on the back of the people. That was great. And then they go through this bit of like the Eve in this timeline is a widow of a slave, and she gets Adam, the Pharaoh, to like get rid of slavery. But then Lucifer like jumps him forward and says like, it doesn't matter. See, they just enslave people again anyway, to kind of like beat it back down. And I'm like, okay, if everyone had kind of a clear, like, we're examining this and then why you can't change it, or examining this, but here's all the negatives of it. Like, you know, it's like freedom and free speech, but here's all the violence of the French Revolution.
Yeah.
Like, give us each, like, but make it really clear. By they're constantly like coming back to the same kind of central points over and over. I get the point of doing that, but it was too much.
I think that's a really good point, Ryan, about having more visuals in it. I don't know if he was just obsessed with the text and this was like a biblical, you know, type of thing to him. This, you know, the source material is so great that you can't fuck with it. But I was going in anticipating a Son of the White Mare kind of experience where it's showing you everything and there's not a lot of words and you're getting the story through the visuals. And I was very caught off guard when the movie started and there's just all these. I was like, oh, when are the like the visuals going to start telling the story? And it never really happened. And it felt a lot more like labor intensive to watch the movie because of that than, you know, just allowing the visuals to kind of tell you what they're doing. And then on your point around them kind of each segment saying the same thing, I thought it was funny. There are two segments that both talk about the evils of democracy. It's the Greeks and the French Revolution. It's like, I turned to John when we were watching. I go, in this section, the devil is democracy. They do kind of go back on and hit these themes repeatedly, but it is interesting to me that they're like, oh, actually, like, you know, these institutions that we hold up as some of the accomplishments of our species, like democracy, also sucks, and it's full of all these issues. And there's that conversation where Adam is trying to make like an equal society, and Satan is like, well, no, you don't want to do that. Like, you want to keep most of the power to yourself, and then you can create like an upper class that is they're basically just your slaves, but they have it a little bit better off, and then they can kind of oversee everybody else. And so it's like taking an idea of creating an equal society and just turning it into a kleptocracy, like eventually always happens.
Yeah, that was the Egypt sequence. Like, after we watched that slave guy, because he's like, I
confuse
want
all
to
the
free. Yeah, it's after. Yeah, it's really funny because like right after Adam witnesses that like Eve gets widowed, and he's like, oh my God, who is this woman who like cries out and has such passion, and goes, and he's like, I'll wipe the tears from your eyes. I'll free all the people. And then Satan's like, whoa, maybe just make a nobility. Like, that would be the best way to do that. And he's like, well, if you say so, that makes sense to me. Yeah, Adam just constantly listening to like the worst of Lucifer's ideas and being like, yeah, that makes sense, I think. Like, sure. I will say, from the show Don't Tell, there are some sequences that like you could really tell that like Marcell had an idea, or somebody on the creative team had like a vision for how they wanted to tell this particular metaphor of things. Instead of having dialogue of Adam being like, oh my God, all the slaves are dying for me or whatever, they show those people turning into bricks and forming, like, their bodies are actually turned into the pyramid. But then at the beginning they have that, like, when it's Genesis and it's really abstract, that's probably the closest we got to like the Son of the White Mare, when we have like Eve, we see that like tree root, and then it suddenly turns into Eve's face, and then she emerges from the tree. And like, that was just like a gorgeous segment, well animated between it. Like, you could tell they had a lot of funding at that point. And then like some moments later, when any of the like transitions would happen between, like, I think like they have really well painted Roman statues, and then they would show the mosaics where everything would move in the mosaic, and you're like, they had a lot of money then, and I don't know if they had a lot of money in between those parts.
Yeah.
But they sort of had like a chart of what they wanted to animate when, and that's when things got really cool and were neat to see. And yeah, at the same time, you're getting that layered over dialogue that also doesn't help that Lucifer sounds very similar to Adam depending upon the emotions in their voices. Like Lucifer's a little whinier, I think, but I always was kind of like, it would be nice if Lucifer had like a deeper, bolder voice for me to at least know, okay, this is him talking and not. I think it took me a while to realize he was a dog in the caveman era, because I was like, who the fuck is talking? Where the fuck is this?
Yeah, because it's not always like animate. There's not like there's mouths even that are animated. A lot of times it's just like the heads are moving or whatever, and you're supposed to kind of figure out like which is which. And then the fact that they kind of like constantly shift, like even when it's one, there's some where it's like pretty clear, like he stays the pharaoh for like a large chunk of it. But then there was like one in the Middle Ages, that like the medieval times or whatever, where it constantly kept changing like what he looked like, what Adam looked like while he was talking, as he went like more good, more bad, like almost line to line. He would kind of like look like a different guy for a second. And then Lucifer was kind of doing the same thing. And then, it just kept, and then it would like jump back and forth between that dialogue and Lucifer, and some big lady like trying to have sex in the background, and it would just go right. And so you're constantly like, who are all these people? Which one is talking? Like, and then even the people, when you pin them down for a second, their faces change.
Yeah, this reminds me of was it Russian Ark in a way? Because I feel like there's certain movies where you have to have like a historical education. You have to have like a degree in history or something to be like, oh, okay, or you have to have taken a course leading up to watching it. Because they also have during the movie moments where they highlight the name of the character that Adam has become, like the historical figure that he is. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like the U.S. education system has failed me immensely, because I don't know who the fuck any of these people are. I know roughly the time periods we're in, but I don't know what they're known for or like any of the things that they should be associated with. And so it makes it even more confusing when Adam changes faces, because you're like, I should know this historical figure and their archetypal resonance, but I just can't. I don't know. I just know that they're a person trying to do maybe their best. I don't actually know if that's true. But yeah, I don't even know beyond that. Like, I feel like the movie has two paces. The first half is breakneck pace, trying to get you into the okay, we've seen Adam and the devil debate these things for like long enough in different contexts. Now we're going to slow down. I think right around the time they get to like London and like the crosshatch or wherever they're maybe they're Germany. I can't remember which fucking era it is, but they get to like that crosshatch, black and white shading. That era really feels like the movie slows down and starts to take a lot more of its time in letting Adam and Lucifer converse. Not that they haven't already been forever before, but that's like when they're ambling around going to like a carnival and a fair, and there's more color being brought in, and we're seeing like World War I things kind of reflected, like that water wheel of bodies that just like rotates through. But I feel like that is when the movie just slowed. I wouldn't say to a crawl, but to a different breath. I don't know if y'all felt that the same way, or if you felt like pacing was more all over the place. But for me, it felt like it's consistently fast in the first half, and then in the latter half, it really slows.
It's just all over the place.
Yeah.
I do feel like, I think because the open, Eden scene, you're as a viewer, you're like, okay, well, I kind of know what this is already. You watch it and you are able to kind of more just see the visuals. And then I think then it's, as it kind of jumps to each one, some of them are slow and talking and methodical. And then some of them, there is action. Like there's a crowd, calling for violence, and, or like characters actually interacting in a way. And then, and then sometimes it's just like a giant human made of a bunch of other humans, and you're just like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. So yeah, it just constantly kind of like whips you back and forth.
And you're like, is that its dick or its tail, or is it a shit
yeah.
that's like clinging to its ass and it won't drop?
A lot of great abstract imagery there.
I would definitely say pacing is a problem because it's just, and I think that might also be just an after effect of how the process of making this, that they just, you're coming and going and you're losing context every time. And so everything that they're putting together is being done in that moment, like independent of the whole movie, before they finally get back around to like slapping all the disjointed pieces together.
And I would imagine too, when you make a movie for 30 years, then, or 20, whatever, how many years it was, at the time you're like pushing Final Cut out, like everything seems important, right? Because you spent so much time on all these things and you're like, oh maybe this scene doesn't work, but like I spent 2 years on that. I'm not cutting that. Like it's just gotta be hard to actually whittle it down at that point.
Yeah. This feels like, I just thought this feels kind of like Cloud Atlas.
Oh God.
I'm not going to say that it's exactly the same, but
I see why you would
there is
say that.
Yeah.
I've tried to erase that movie from my consciousness as much as possible. Really, all I remember is the Rick and Morty joke about it with Jerry saying something about the true, and that's about all I recall.
The true. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. There was a Satan figure in that as well. It was played by Hugo Weaving. I guess from the things that we've talked about so far, when I came out of this movie, I feel like each time that I watch it, it's not that I feel that it is like overwhelmingly I have to go back and see it again at some point. I wouldn't even say that I feel indifferent. I'm kind of just mesmerized by it. Like, I think I had a friend in LA who accidentally put it on from my Plex server, and they didn't realize that there were supposed to be subtitles. So they just like watched it without subtitles, and they were like, it was awesome. Like, it was just pretty fucking rad. Like, I had no idea what was going on, and I put some music on, and it was a great visual thing. And I'm like, I guess that's just like a testament to Marcell and the studio. But yeah, like,
it'd be less distracting watching it that way, and just like let yourself, just be in the visuals and interpret it from that standpoint.
Almost like a music video in a way.
Yeah. Put on some Pink Floyd and just go. But that got me kind of thinking, because we've talked before a little bit about movies that they show things in linear, especially having just talked about, sorry, Dixon, Zack Snyder's Watchmen. I have to bring it back up. Where the editing is all fucked in that, and the storytelling is completely made linear. It has very similar resonance to this, where it's like they knew what they wanted to do and they knew they had to tell it throughout time. So they just framed it linearly, where you're caveman and then you're evolved into, Egyptian and then Roman and on and on and on. And part of that is, I feel like the poem itself probably explores that, but in the visual medium, I feel like it would have been more beneficial to do the Cloud Atlas thing, where you're popping back and forth between different timelines and trying to tell your story and show it in parallel. Like, here are the things that are very similar. It would have resulted in potentially less of a cyclic, repetitive nature in the way that it's told, and more of all of these timelines kind of fold together, and you can see humanity at each point continues to struggle with like the same thing, but slightly different. Probably would have made it feel a little more fresh or different. And the fact that they use different visual styles feels like this movie was made to be done that way, to let you know we're in a different timeline now, so that you would kind of visually have continuity. But yeah, I don't, that's what, like, I think when I come away from it, it's not like I should go back and watch that again, or I should experience it. I just have like notes where I'm like, I feel like I would have benefited if this was more of this instead. And I don't even have like a negative feeling about the film in general. I'm just kind of in awe that it was made at all and that it was made the way it was. But part of me is like, yeah, I think they were too focused on getting it out after the 23 years and less about like, how do we re-edit this, or like, what can we do? I guess it's the time as old as a tale as old as time, with like all of these kind of long production movies, is like, just get it out like at some point, and whatever gets out is out.
Yeah. Unless you're Francis Ford Coppola, and then you can just keep remaking it and putting it out over and over again in slightly different cuts.
And there's a new Megalopolis coming soon,
Yeah.
I heard.
That's interesting. An interesting idea to edit the stories between each other. Like that could make it a little bit more visually interesting. I wonder if that would reduce the power of the narrative a little bit, where like, I think because it's told linearly, you're expecting progress and you keep not getting progress. And that's kind of the point, right? Is that in theory, we should be evolving as a species, but we're not. And we are like not even coming close to evolving. Like it's just, we just forget the lessons of the past and continue to do stupid shit over and over. Even like, you know, humans within their own lifespan forget the same lesson, do the same thing over and over. Like, you know, we're just doing 2003 all over again right now. We're just finding Middle Eastern countries and bombing them for fun. You know, it's just like we don't really learn anything. And we didn't, you know, before Iraq, we didn't learn from Vietnam, and we didn't learn from Korea and all these other things where, like, you know, that's just an example of modern American military failures, that where we just continue to not learn anything over and over. But you know, individuals do the same thing within their own lives in the same day, do, you know, fuck up in the same way. And I think that story of how like we're actively not evolving is probably more powerful, showing the, you know, the tale linearly through the history of humanity. But I think that would be interesting to cut it up in the way that you're thinking, John, and see how that would, you know, impact the experience.
I think there's a lack of a feeling of a through line. I think that's what needs to be fixed somehow.
Agreed. To completely agree.
Right. Yeah, we kind of just like go to a time period, watch something happen. Sometimes it's because he dies, you move forward. Sometimes we just get to like a lesson of shittiness and move forward. Right. And it's never like fully clear. And the lesson every time is just like, you know, even when humanity does try to do something good in some new way, there's also something shitty. And we either get like these visions of a future that supposedly is run by like thought and science or whatever, but then is just like a impressive state.
Yeah. That totalitarian sci-fi thing. That whole sequence, and then turning into when it goes to space, was really when I was like, wow, we're gonna become more like a robot spaceship
during all that.
We're just fucking going all the way out. Yeah.
He was like becoming a machine
like
over time. I don't really know what was going on with that.
I mean, I get like I think the base through line, and that's probably why it's just hard to make a movie about this, is because Adam has to inhabit the body of different characters throughout time to represent all of humanity. And Adam's core struggle has been the same that it's been since the beginning of the movie, which is he ate from the tree of knowledge and he reached for the tree of immortality, and he was struck down by God for wanting to do that. And his whole purpose became, how do I like get immortality then? If God's going to deny me, how do I prove to God that I deserve to be immortal? But it's not as well explained, because him and Satan just bicker the entire movie about it. And they debate what could make true immortality. Cause he's like, when he's an Egyptian pharaoh, he's like, I'm made of gold now, and I'm having all these slaves build these things for me. But then even in the background, Satan is telling him like, yeah, you're like doing all that, but it's not really going to last. And he's holding like miniature sculptures of the pyramids, and they turn to sand, like they're disintegrating in his hand. He's effectively just like, this is all bullshit too. And I think like flashing forward into the future, when Adam becomes a gigantic spaceship or whatever the fuck happened, it is that symbol of like what people tell you now, what like fucking Elon Musk is saying about going to space and how Mars is going to be the next colony of mankind and where we're going to branch out, and like that's going to be his fucking legacy. Like that is a tiny rock in this goddamn cosmos that means nothing. And like Adam reaching for space and then realizing, I think at the end he realizes it doesn't matter how far I reach into the like darkness of the void. What matters is what I'm doing in like the life that I'm currently living. Cause it strikes him all the way back down to when he's like a caveman. And I think there's that really rad sequence at the beginning too, where he and Satan taunt Mother Earth. I don't know if y'all remember that scene where he goes out and he like shouts at the mountains and they become like gigantic breasts, and like they come like the fertility idol like emerges from Earth, and Satan's like, oh my God, Earth's like way bigger when you're actually on it. Like, what the fuck is this? And God shows up to be like, yeah, you fucking idiot. You didn't think that like a heavenly body like this would be this massive when you're staring right at it and you're living in it. And I think that that's one of those like, Satan's trying to tell Adam how great he can be. I think they even have a conversation about ambition at some point, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of like free will and ambition as well.
Yeah.
Like not, yeah.
And I just like, those are the things that I think are supposed to be the through line, is like, at what point are you supposed to rein your ambition in? And I feel like it's harder to make that the through line because Adam as a character is a person you have to connect with across generations. And that is where that like Cloud Atlas problem comes in of like, how do I get my fucking context at each one of these junctures beyond just feeling like I'm experiencing a history lesson, and trying to gather what's going on with it. So that's at least my take on like, I don't even know if a through line could help it. Cause I thought it already had one. It just is a really murky one.
I mean, it does, right? Cause I think then the eventual thing is just Adam accepting the mortality, accepting somewhat the futility, but then still agreeing to like move forward. And honestly, I'm like, and like believe and have faith in God. It's weird how it spins a long section kind of shitting on Christianity to then like at the end, like it kind of comes back full circle to the open and is like, I don't know, God positive again a little bit at the end.
I don't know if it's God positive. It seemed to me like it's like Adam has to move forward because that's the only choice, right? It's like at the end of the day, it's to be or not to be, you know, and that's all he really has in front of him is like, I can do all of this, I can struggle, I can live through all this violence, or I can just decide not to do that and off myself right now. But like that's really all he has. I don't know that there's like a hopeful trust in God kind of message to this, or have some sort of, you know, belief in something bigger than yourself that can help propel you forward.
I guess more in that, like, we see God at the beginning and he has a little discourse with Lucifer, but then we don't really get anything from him, right? It almost is like a set a clock and leave it God, I guess, other than getting pissed about him eating the apple. Until the very end, like that's when like God pops back up and somewhat Adam's like already deciding to like, okay, I'm accepting this. I'm accepting my mortality. Like he's gone through all of this. And then God tells him, he's like, move forward, get on with it. And in that way, then it's like Adam is like, okay. And he accepts like that as well. So it's not necessarily like, I guess, God, it's not like affirming that faith or any of it. Certainly not the religion, but more of this just like, okay. And it isn't like that there's a purpose or any of it. It's just more of like, God gave you this, like all of this, right? Do with it what you will. You aren't going to be as good as him or immortal or any of that. And whatever you try to do will probably be shitty and forgotten. But like, it's still worth going through, I guess, is then like.
Yeah.
And the absence of God throughout the movie is interesting to me too, where it's like his presence is kind of over the whole thing because the story of Genesis and they have him at the beginning creating humanity and then just kind of fucking off, and like there's almost like a silence aspect to this where like Adam is going through all these things, like trying to figure out the meaning of life, how to do it, and there's just nothing there. Like you almost forget God is a character at some point during the thing, that he even showed up at the start. When he comes back at the end, you're like, oh fuck, I forgot that he was even involved here.
Yeah. I'm kind of honestly surprised, given I know Adam has a whole moment where he's like, I don't fucking need God anyway. I can do whatever I want to do. And but I thought that maybe at some point in the movie, Adam would be like, where is God? Like, why is he, it would have been like a silence moment where then Lucifer would have been like, you really don't need him. Like,
Right.
I've guided you through so many things. Like, that's a good kind of checkpoint. That's like an act 2 kind of thing for him to be in this heavy doubt. But yeah, I love that opening sequence where y'all remember when God and Lucifer got into it in the cosmos? That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
When when Lucifer's sitting there cross-armed after God finishes the universe, and he's like, "What? You don't like my work? What the fuck's wrong with you, you mook?" And Lucifer is just like, "Yeah, it's like it's not that great. There's not a lot of great things about it." I feel like the movie had such a weird It's a Wonderful Life-esque start that Dixon and I both noticed, where when it zooms in on like the cosmos, we thought that was going to be something else.
There's a
but
man
I do
down
feel
there
like
named George Bailey. He needs your help.
George Bailey is the Adam of the 1930s. I did feel like I wanted to see a little bit more of Lucifer and God's spats and relationships. It would have been kind of interesting to have seen it be more like God would have wanted Adam to come back to him, but Lucifer continued to keep Adam away or kept God at bay for certain things. But I guess the emphasis on there being like silence and sort of like, I wouldn't say God's abandonment, but God just
God's
turning his back at him,
disinterest.
being like, well, if you think his disinterest, his like, hey, if you're old enough to make your own decisions, I guess I'm just going to let you go out on your own and figure it out. And that being like the quiet questioning answers that Adam has, or like quiet answers, unknowing silence.
Yeah. The
But
other
yeah.
film that this reminded me of was 2001. I'm curious if either of you guys thought about that, but with 2001, it's like the discovery of knowledge, the discovery of the ability to use tools leads to violence over and over again, right? And despite the technology that is developed and the quote unquote advancement of humanity, at the end of the day, it still boils down to just new ways of destruction. And that kind of felt similar to this story where like, you get the knowledge from the tree, and then everything from there is just violence and destruction and humanity harming itself over and over again.
I did get that vibe. I mean, the movie also started with when Lucifer's talking to God about how foolish God has been in creating his own creatures. There is like an atom bomb or like a hydrogen bomb, like the mushroom cloud is in the background of the sun or something. And it just sort of, there's a few moments where they also forecast like things in the future that will happen. They show like people agonizing, and they show the different art styles and different mosaics and paintings and other things of just human suffering that are about to come from the creation of man. But yeah, like I did think about 2001, mostly just the space sequences made me think a lot about it. And I guess the caveman sequence as well. I was like, oh, like seeing the cave art come to life was really cool. And like a lot of the moments where like different art forms came to life and did their own thing were highlights for me visually. It's hard not to be when you're like, hey, that's a different art style and they're actually animating it. And here's how it probably feels when animated that way. But yeah, I got those vibes, Dixon.
Yeah, I kind of had that thought too. I will say that what I was thinking about was that I feel like there's a better example of show don't tell. Right? The movie doesn't sit there constantly
Sure,
like
it tells
going
you
back
nothing.
and forth. Right. Yeah, which people I guess, are often
Arthur C.
upset
Clarke
by,
disagrees.
But yeah, I think it also allows you to revisit that movie again and again, right?
Yeah.
To try to see it from a different perspective and feel it and try to like find the pieces within it. It's not hammering you over the head with it
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah, I would be curious if this movie ever inspires some other artist to be like, well, Marcel doesn't like the stage plays. I don't like his animated version. I'm going to make my own. It would be really interesting to see that.
Go for it, John.
I will say, I think that, I'll give it a shot. Here comes the crudely drawn era of my childhood. I will say I know Marcel's on record as saying that this movie, because like when they started production in 1988, they started under communist, like the communist regime. And after the fall of communism, which was, I think, 89, like that shook up the government funding. But he also said that prior to that, the government was not as willing to indulge him in a lot of the blasphemous and or like more political things he wanted to do. So we have kind of the fall of communism to thank for probably most of this movie because he was like, yeah, I would have been censored otherwise. Like the moment that communism fell, I just went kind of crazy with what I could do visually or talking about like the different historical tragedies and atrocities that like mankind has done. They didn't want me to do that for plenty of my other movies, and they had plenty of government checks in place. But I'm also like, I don't know which parts those were. I'm assuming the science fiction dystopia where there's like a whole totalitarian and oppressive government is something that they would have been like, no, we don't want this because it feels like you're criticizing us or something. But it is interesting to think part of this movie would have been, you know, neutered or censored in its own way. I don't know if it'd been beneficial or not. Probably not. It's already kind of bloated in its own way.
Yeah.
It just felt probably more like just cut up and nonsensical. But were there any other sequences or scenes that stood out in y'all's mind as like super impactful, or other qualities of the movie that you wanted to highlight? So I don't think that I have anything else.
There are so many.
So much, actually.
Right? Yeah, like I am thinking now that we're talking about it, I'm like, you almost could go back and maybe excise, edit it a little bit, but really because with all the dialogue, it's never like matched up to any mouths or anything. It's like one of the things it's a little bit difficult to follow because of that, because the animation, like fluidity or sometimes lack of budget or whatever it is, you could almost just go back and like dub over this something kind of different and string it together like a little bit better or make it more of like a musical. But you could just pull segments from this. Like that's where I will say what's crazy is I've never seen any of this, because there are so many like moments in this that are just awesome, that like completely bonkers, even without audio, like awesome that they're not out there. No one's like sharing them or talking about them. Yeah.
Well, Dixon, you heard Ryan. We need to dub this. You said you wanted an English version.
Good
Clearly.
Point. I call Satan.
He was already claimed for you. Yeah, I would agree. I think that also you could probably, I'm not saying you could teach a course on it, but I think that if you were like wanting to explore this piece with like a couple of friends, I feel like our discussion doesn't really do it the best service because it is so bloated and there's so much in it that's condensed that needs like probably cultural, historical context. I feel like this would be great for like a month of a college course.
Yeah.
Like there would be kind of good excerpts or good segments, and it does feel in its own way like it would be cool to know more about that. Not saying that that's, you know, hey, that's not really what movies are made for. You're not supposed to go to the theater and then take like, you know, film strips home with you and hopefully rerun it with other people. But this one does feel dense enough to be like a book club subject.
Yeah, the comparisons to Milton are like really clear, but I think it's the same thing there where Milton talks about particular people and makes particular references like throughout the books. And if you're like, I don't know who that random pope or cardinal was that you're making a dig at, right? And there's like notes, like if you like read almost all the editions now have like extensive notes included to explain to you what the fuck it is, what those references are. I was like looking at some people talking about this, and there were several people who were like, oh yeah, the whole thing with the Copernicus part is like interesting or whatever, or with, you know, him and his wife. I'm like, well, that's Kepler. I mean, they're both about planets and telescopes and shit, but it's the wrong one. But they don't really, because it's like, and is it important to know that? Not exactly. I do feel like there are parts where I wish I knew more about what that particular person was, because then I think I maybe would have even more context for like what he was trying to get across.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I know the French Revolution pieces, but I don't know that particular person, but I get the gist of it because I know a lot about the French Revolution, right? Like, so it's like, it works, but why did you pick that particular person? And why did you like that? You could just pick one era and talk about it for like a week.
Yeah. It feels steeped in more knowledge than anybody has going into it, unless you're really going to be, unless you are like a professor of history or something, and then you're like, oh, that character, like, okay, or you're a nerd on that subject in particular. So I want to know how to best equip myself for it. It's now, in having seen it twice and still not fully grasping parts of it, but understanding like the overall, I get the gist of the movie and the conversations had within it. I feel like there's more to dig into. And I wouldn't say that I'm off put by the fact that it's like kind of aimless in what it feels like. I think that speaks to just the humanity's journey in general. Is like, what the fuck are we actually trying to do? It feels like a big ambitious swing for Marcell to try to bring out, especially after 23 years, to be like, yeah, it's done, like, get it out and everybody can think about it. I appreciate the ambition behind it. But yeah, that's a good point, Ryan. There's a lot to pour over in this.
Yeah.
Dixon, did you have anything else on your mind related to
No.
what is the tragedy of man?
The tragedy of man, I think, is that we never learn anything.
That's unfortunate. We're a bunch of idiots.
Always been the tragedy of man.
That's true. Ryan, would you agree that that's the tragedy of man?
Yeah. I guess we try to do stuff and we die at the end no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doomed to kill each other. That's all we're good for. And all the other living things around us.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you gotta take the world with you.
Take everything down with us. Yeah.
Yeah. We saved that for the sequel.
The fourth season of Brockmire gets very weird and trippy, and they like move forward into the future, and the world is ending. And in the last episode, Brockmire has a quote. He says, "I have achieved every baby boomer's dream, to die at the exact same moment as the world around me."
That is the true tragedy of man.
I think about that a lot. Like, that
line
lives in my head a lot.
That's a pretty, that's definitely a rent-free line.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say on this movie. I guess I would recommend it. I'm just going to say outright, because it's an experience. It washes over you. It's fucking wild. You leave and you're kind of disoriented and trying to figure out what was what and how it was. I think obviously we've added some critiques on top of this of how it could have been tweaked up, possibly pacing wise, animation and all that. Ryan, would you recommend The Tragedy of Man?
As a movie, maybe not, but almost as like a visiting a museum. Like, this is like an art piece experience, right? I think if people are okay going into it with that, of like, you're going to get something from it. It's, you're just along for the ride. Here you go. I think it's worth that to look at. And I will say, like, it goes over like events that actually happened, the like tail end of it. We have this like future think sci-fi type stuff that's also realistic. Like, it's not too far thought out. I don't know, maybe robot people or whatever, but the like dystopian utopia at the end. But like it weirdly, I was almost like, you could like show it to a class and be like, here's the history of the world. It's like the most like fucked up like kids like after school video of like learning history. But it is like, that it's like well laid out and thought out that way.
Yeah. Dude, it would be really funny if a high school class was exposed to this and had to write like weekly essays or some shit about it. That just seems like it would melt their brains.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Dixon, would you recommend The Tragedy of Man? The movie and
the concept, no.
And the tragedy.
The movie, yes. I would definitely recommend this. It is a commitment to watch. I think, it's about 3 hours long, and there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of subtitles, and so you have to be ready for that. But the animation is great, and the concepts are really interesting. And so if you go into it with the right mindset that you want to experience the nature of man and how we have changed or not changed over the history of the species, I think it's a worthwhile experience.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning. We watched this with our buddy Sam as well. I had told him about it and invited him over. And after it was done, he said, I feel like I got to watch that movie like 10 more times to understand what was going on in it. And I would agree. It's all about finding that time.
Anyway, next week we're going to talk about the tragedy
yeah.
of man. We're going to watch it for a second time, and we're going to do a 10-part series on this and see go with anything new.
It's our sequel series, The Tragedy of Men, and we're the men. And this is our tragedy that we have to watch this again and again. All right. Well, there you go. You have a recommend from me. That's a pretty flat recommend. I mean, even if you're somebody who's not going to jive with this, I feel like it's going to fuck up your day in the right way. It'll make you think about some stuff. You have a recommend from Ryan if it's a rainy day and you couldn't make it to the museum, this would be great to put on. Instead, show it to the kids. Why not? I'm sure they'll love the busty lass that gets boned by Lucifer.
Who doesn't?
You have a recommend from Dixon. You have a recommend from
statue
Dixon
orgy.
Yeah.
It's great. It's for kids.
It's fantastic. You'll teach every kid that a dog has Satan housed within it.
About damn time that the kids learned.
Well, yeah, that I think does it for us here on the Afterthoughts podcast. We'll just wrap this one up for you. The tragedy of man is that we're not going to learn anything, and we're all a bunch of idiots. And hopefully, this hour-long podcast has covered it thoroughly enough. I feel like the movie itself can't be covered in that time, but we did our best, damn it.
And to the extent that we learn anything, it's just how to terrorize each other in more unique ways.
That's exactly what it was. Well, I have been your host, John Garcia. Joining me as always,
Ryan King, and I guess all of my Lucifer dogs in the background here.
Fucking Cerberus monster in your house. It's always barking at us.
And also joining us,
Michael Dixon, thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.